I'd like to talk to you about stitch anatomy, how stitches are made and which loops make which part of the stitch. Here I have a piece of crochet fabric. What's important here is the way the stitches look. I'm just going to open up this loop so I can use the hook to point. This here is a stitch that's between my two thumbs. That's a stitch. Each stitch consists out of two portions. Its post and the top of the stitch. The post of the stitch is this part here, and the top of the stitch is this part here, this little V, or it can also look like a heart. Kind of depends on how you look at it. If you are right-handed, your V will point to the right. So you see here the tip of the V, the way it points. If you're right-handed, that points to the right. If you're left-handed, that points to the left. This is what the stitch looks like when you're working it from the front. Now when you turn your work, turn it the other way, now you have the back of the stitches facing, and then your little V's point the other direction because you've turned your work. So from the back of the fabric, your V's point to the left if you're right-handed, and to the right if you're left-handed. I'm just going to take the front of the fabric again. What belongs to what? Now you see, here's the post and here's the stitch. So if you look at it this way, you see the little V, and the post that belongs to this V is immediately below it. This is important when we're working front and back post stitches. So which stitch is which? So if you're working in this stitch here, and it asks to work in the next stitch, you would go to there. If you then work in the next stitch, you would go to there. But sometimes the pattern will ask you to work around the post of the next stitch. So let's say you've started here, then when you work around the post of the next stitch, you would come here. So with the post, that would be this position. And if you then work into the next stitch again, that would be here. It's important to realize that the V, the top of the stitch, belongs to the post that's directly underneath it. Having said that, the next step is to see how exactly do the loops that's on your hook and all the loops and yarn overs that you're doing, how they create the stitch. To show you which loop makes which part of the stitch, I'm actually going to use several colors. I have here a bit of yellow yarn and a bit of blue yarn, and of course I have the pink yarn here. Now the stitches that I'm making are called double crochets in US terms. Now forget about that for the moment. What I want you to look at is which loop makes which part of the stitch. The pink loop that's currently on my hook, this is going to create the top of the next stitch. So this loop is actually already the part of my next stitch. The yarn overs that I'm going to do with the yellow are going to create a part of the post, and I'm going to take off the loops with the blue, and that will create another part of the post and the next loop. Let me show you. So I'm actually not going to work with the pink anymore, and this is going to take some coordination from my part because I've got all these loose yarns. I'm going to yarn over with the yellow, insert in my stitch, draw up a loop. Now I'm going to yarn over and take off these loops with the blue. And what you'll notice is that these two yellow loops will be at the bottom and the blue will be at the top of the post. I'm going to yarn over and take off these two loops. And now I'm going to yarn over again and take off two loops. And now let me just pull everything a little bit tighter that you can actually see what has happened here, because all these loops are of course still a little loose. Now look what has happened. The yellow yarn, which I did the yarn overs with, are here at the bottom of the post. The blue, which I took off the loops with, is here at the top of the post. And my last yarn over has created the blue loop on my hook. So what's interesting to note here is that you see the pink loop is now at the stitch. If I just open up this, you see here, if you know where to work into this stitch, the pink loop here is your stitch. So the loop that's currently on your hook, this loop here, makes the next stitch, the top of the stitch. And the first yarn overs, the ones that you wrap around your hook, are the bottom of the stitch. And as you take off your loops, you're creating the second part of this stitch. So that means I'm just going to take all of this out. If I just work a normal stitch in one color, this loop is going to be the top of the next stitch. I yarn over and I work like this. And now let me just take a new color. Let me take the blue. You can see you've completely worked that stitch in pink. And if you now work this one in the blue yarn, and I do my last yarn over to pink again, you can see you've got an entire blue stitch. So the loop that's on your hook is the top of the next stitch. That's the take-home message, because that will help you to realize what is the next stitch. So if you look at this loop here, and that yarn over is actually made in two parts. So this loop was already on the hook, and these are all the yarn overs that we made. So stitch anatomy helps you to see which part of the stitch goes where. You get more confident in this as you crochet more. You'll learn to identify your stitches. Well, the take-home message for you here today is which loop creates which part of the stitch.